Hi, this is Gordon with another edition of Mug Life, the show that dares to ask the question, what can be potentially scarier in the midst of COVID-19? Making videos about coffee mugs or watching videos about coffee mugs? Last time I talked about Metropolis and my life in St. Louis. So today I'm going to be talking about an organization that helped me adjust when I got back to Chicago, and that is the Chicago Nerd Social Club. I actually got this mug about 2 years ago when I was attending Almost Pi Day, and I had just met a newish contact named Emma. Hi, Emma. And it was more of a, she was looking for contacts, and I just wanted to introduce her around. And I had been involved with Chicago Nerd Social Club it was actually one of the first places that I went, including Net Squared, Net Tuesday, to try to get back into the Chicago scene after I moved back. Long story short, my dad passed, my mom was getting sicker, and St. Louis just wasn't working for me. Well, that and a narcissistic boss named Doug, but that's a story for another time. Because I need to contact my lawyer, because, yeah, it would get that way. But anyway, back to Chicago. After attending a couple of Chicago Nerd Social Club events, Jeff Smith, who was president at the time, and he was actually the founder of Chicago Nerd Social Club, asked me if I would join the board because I was the nonprofit guy. And so I did. And I worked with some very, very really cool people over the years. Carlin and Caitlin and Paul and Ann and Jeff and Mishy. And I know I'm forgetting somebody. Well, there's one person I'm deliberately ignoring, but only because she was didn't really care for this person. So we're not going to mention them. But I have to admit, it was never a case of where I felt like I was the expert and everyone else was, somehow not doing what they were doing. The nice thing is, backtrack a little bit, I had always been involved in civic matters back in St. Louis. I was on the board of Boys and Girls Club, which is now Great Circle. I was chairman of the Tobacco-Free Missouri Coalition. I was on Metropolis board for a year and a half. And it always felt like no matter what, you were fighting politics. It was always the idea of, it's never about the mission, it was always about volleying for attention. And it was especially true with Metropolis, where it just felt more like about infighting than it was about actually getting things done. And Great Circle was a great place to serve on the board. Tobacco-Free Missouri, again, it had its unique challenges, but Chicago Nerd Social Club was a breeze, relatively speaking. In fact, in many ways, I regret leaving, but only because, in my opinion, the last maybe 6 months to a year I was bored, I did relatively nothing. I'm not putting myself down. It's just that I was probably the least busy and the least engaged of all the board members. And I felt, with everything else kind of happening, I felt it's better to leave on a relative high note. I mean, I had 250 people in a bar watching Doctor Who Day of the Doctor. They all ordered food and drinks. To me, that's a personal best. And I don't get too nostalgic for those days, only because it's easy now with the talk of, with reopening, that it's easy to forget that, oh yeah, there is such a thing as going out and being social. But what I loved about Chicago Nerd Social Club was that it was less about doing social things and more about connections. I think the best way to describe it is that with a lot of times we love what we love, but we forget that other people love the same thing. And we act as if we need to be the most person in love with something. And I'm finding that attitude very prevalent in the Doctor Who meetup. And I kind of wish that more people would appreciate things in the moment and to be able to accept that, sometimes it's not about convenience, and that other people are not there at your convenience, that other people are not a means to an end. And I don't see Chicago Nerd Social Club as the last great thing in my life. I mean, I left, as I said, because I was not doing as much as I would like to. But I do hope that forever who catches this offline, yeah, as you're looking through YouTube for whatever people go through YouTube for, that you at least consider that sometimes maybe you want to be with other people because you have to take the initiative to reach out. So that's the episode for today. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that other YouTube stuff. I'll have my Patreon, Ko-Fi, and Amazon links in the card after this, so feel free to buy my work. Feel free to join me on Patreon. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon.